Wow, okay, so I'm super excited. Hi there, hello. So I am super excited. Maybe first of all I'll introduce myself. My name is Gabrielle Bodner, and I just want to thank you. Also I want to thank you, Erez, for organizing this festival, and I want to thank you, whoever is watching. So the title of my session is there such a thing as too much light, or blinded by the light? What does that mean? So I think first of all, before we talk about too much light, let's talk about, what is light? I'm not going to give any physics-like equations. I can say first of all what light means to me, and light means to me some kind of inspiration. I would even say creation. In the book of Genesis, it's like the first thing that is actually created, and there's even this sentence. Sorry, I'm very excited. Vayar Elohim et haor ki tov. God sees the light as something good, and this is something I think that is very strong. A strong feeling about light. It is something good. It has an essence of truth within it. And I'm going to bring another quote this time. I hope I'm getting it right. Ecclesiastes, Kohelet in Hebrew. The quote goes, "V'matok haor la'enaim." The light is sweet to our eyes. So with this sweetness, I'm going to take us to a very good friend of mine who really likes sweet things. I think you know his name, I assume. His name is Winnie the Pooh. And he talks about, of course, honey. So basically what happens is Pooh kind of invites himself to lunch at Rabbit's house, and he knows that Rabbit has a lot of honey, and Rabbit even offers him, "Oh, do you want some milk and bread and honey?" And Pooh says, "Oh, I'll be glad, but no milk and no bread for me, just honey." So Winnie the Pooh, he eats and he eats and he eats, and then when he wants to go home, he says, "Goodbye. I'm going to read you the rest." "Goodbye, Rabbit. I must be going," said Pooh. Rabbit sighed. "Well, Pooh, if you're sure you won't have any more honey..." "There's more honey?" asked Pooh, sure that he could manage a few more bites. "No," said Rabbit wearily, "there isn't." "I thought not," said Pooh, and he started to walk out of the front door. Now, there are all these pretty drawings in the book, but I'll leave it to your imagination. So Pooh is kind of trying to go out and exit through this kind of hole that's kind of the main door, I guess, of Rabbit's place. So just as Pooh's head had reached the outdoors and his feet were still dangling indoors, his middle got stuck in the middle. Pooh tried to go out, he tried to go in, but he could do neither. "Bother," said Pooh. "It all comes from not having a big enough door." "Nonsense," said Rabbit sharply. "It all comes from eating too much." So this is, by the way, from the book Winnie the Pooh and the Honey Tree. And it kind of continues that while Pooh is stuck in this in-between kind of stage, so these different animals come and they comfort him. They give him a scarf, and they give him flowers and different things. And at some point, Gopher, he comes and he has a bit of honey inside in his bag, and then he says he's about to offer some to Pooh, and then straight away Rabbit comes and says, "Oh no, this isn't good, because we actually want Pooh to stop eating honey so that he can be skinny enough, to get out of the hole." And then Pooh, he says, "I don't want to eat honey. I just want to taste it." So we're gonna put Winnie the Pooh aside, as much as I can keep on talking about Winnie the Pooh all day. this concept of having just a taste of the honey. You don't just want to eat it all up and then get stuck in this in between, not here, not there kind of state. So I'll talk a little bit about myself actually. So at the age of 20, by the age of 20, I actually went through quite a bit of bee bites, bee stings, I guess I would call it. I overcame depression, which was, I don't have enough time to talk about my whole life, but I went through a lot, and I also do want to thank my family and all the supporting networks that I had throughout that time. And I arrived at this age of 20 with a backpack on my bag and on my back at the Ben Gurion terminal, the airport. This was one day after I finished the army, actually, and I was heading to Mongolia to taste some honey, as they say. So yeah, I didn't know exactly how long I'm going to be going, but I was out for an adventure. So Mongolia became also travel to China, and from there I continued to Laos and Cambodia, and from there I continued to the States, and then I continued to Ecuador and Colombia and Cuba and Brazil and Paraguay, back to Brazil, back to Ecuador, and in the end I ended up in Alaska. It's okay if you're getting dizzy. I also kind of got dizzy. So during all these travels, I actually volunteered in Brazil, in a very, very special place. And in this place, people were changing their names as part of some kind of I would call it maybe a spiritual path, a spiritual journey. And this made me very curious, because to me, traveling, especially traveling alone, is not just an exploration of different places and different scenes. It's actually also this freedom of identity, learning new aspects of myself. So I kind of had my mind like, oh, next place I'll go, I can just change my name, because nobody knows me there. And that's what I did. It was very, very easy, actually. So my next destination after this place in Brazil was Ecuador. So I go to Ecuador and people ask me, what's your name? So I say, my name is Light, or in Spanish, Luz. It was incredibly easy, and soon enough, I was Light to everyone. And I was not only Light the name, but Light the identity, the being. I was loving, and I was kind, and I was generous and happy. I was giving, and I was noticing how the more I'm becoming lightful, the more the world is lightful to me. Very, very special time. I actually arrived in Ecuador as a volunteer after a very serious earthquake that had occurred. So this is also kind of interesting, that this feeling of belonging, this feeling that I was very, very protected. I felt very wise and yet very simple. There was a great sense of home, kind of the home within and the home that is beyond. I was surrounded by torn up houses and people living in tents, but I felt home. For about 2 months, this was my name, Light. And I think I want to read you a few things that I wrote as Light. So I wrote, wherever my eyes go, the beauty comes. Some people look for the light switch their whole lives. How about just opening up the curtains? The truth must come like a sunrise, slow, colorful, silent. And this is something that I actually stumbled upon just a few minutes before this talk. I'm calling you Miss Gabrielle Bodner from the distance of time, opening you a window to the room where you are dreaming and you are awake at the same time, a room full of mirrors and light. So yes, I was light, and things were good, and what bad can be, from being just happy, and things are good, and feeling so synchronized and one with this world. I kept on traveling a little more in Ecuador, still staying as light. Actually, if you'll visit my Facebook page, my profile picture, that girl over there, her name is Light. So then what happens next, right? So there was a trip scheduled to Alaska, so that kind of forced me to move north from South America. I joined this cruise with my family, and to my family, my name is Gabrielle. So what happens then? Again, so much to say in so little time, so I'm just kind of throwing out ideas. But here I'll actually bring some quotes from Rabbi Nachman Breslev. He has a sentence: a free person is a person that doesn't have to do anything that he wants, which I find that very powerful, because my concept of freedom was, the freedom to do whatever you want, but it's actually the freedom to be able to also not always do whatever you want. He has another sentence which I really like. The light that is too strong, we cannot see, right? If we try to look into the sun, it's blinding. And just as this light is too much, is overwhelming, also just speaking about truth, about the piercing truth in a too direct way, can actually prevent us from getting near this truth, from getting close to it. I would also even say from getting close to God, or to this oneness, or to the truth, or inspiration, or freedom, right? It's all part of the same thing. So I was still with dreadlocks, by the way. I was traveling Rasta Gabi. I was with these dreadlocks. I arrived on this cruise ship to Alaska, and I'm reminded that I'm actually Gabriella, and I'm still wanting, dance in the piano bars at night, and I can go on and on. Anyways, I go back to Israel. I start actually university, some kind of excellence program, philosophy and politics and economics. Now I go to university with, I still dressed kind of as if I'm from Ecuador, playing the ukulele, skipping along. I was like seeing rainbows everywhere. I would make myself Turkish coffee, and I would see in the bubbles of the Turkish coffee, I would see rainbows, and everything was reflections. I would see a puddle, and it could capture me. And I was allowing all this to come, all this awe. It was actually a year and a half, when I came to think of it, it was a year and a half of sun. Because I was half a year in the northern hemisphere while it was summer, and then I was half a year in South America while it was winter. In the northern hemisphere it was summer, in the southern hemisphere, and then once again a summer, so I was kind of having a year and a half of summer. Many rainbows. I was watching the moon smiling, and the smile filling up with light, and I was watching the constellations from so many different angles. And here I am in Jerusalem, sitting in a bench in university. Also, I can continue and elaborate so much, but I'm gonna pop over to another. I read a lot, so this is just one of my journals. Everybody says everybody all the time, but wait, everybody. But what is body? We are all just mind. Each is one of a kind, or just a kind type of one. And I am the sun in my world, forever rising, a light, wising, bright. Flowing, growing, knowing, trying to gain height. I am just a kite. I am the night light in my dream. So for those of you who have read the description of this session, one of my questions there is my nightlight shining too bright? So after this year and a half of summer comes winter. And in this winter I was in Jerusalem. Christmas and Hanukkah were celebrated at the same time in that year. And a lot of darkness, the darkest days of the year. It was towards the end of December, but also a lot of light. And I would turn on night lights and turn on candles, and I would put on music in loops, and I would just sit and write. And as I was saying, I was feeling very, very wise, and very, very strong internally in my faith in the goodness of this world and God and inspiration and light. Light still existed within me, even if on the outside I am Gabby or Gabriella. So I was sitting for a couple of hours and writing and going to university sometimes in the morning, sometimes not, going to festivals, going to the Dead Sea. And I was meeting so many people, and every encounter was getting deeper and getting more and more connected to this oneness. So I started having theories, actually, theories about the past, about it could have been 100, 200 years ago, and then further back in the history of mankind, and further back in the nature of this world, and finally galaxies and universe and black holes and time and space, and thoughts about Einstein and combining physics and Kabbalah and my own experience from my journeys. And at some point, actually, I had, one can call it, everything kind of intensified. I had not just theories about the past, but also true beliefs, certainty, I would call it, about the future. And the future is that the world is coming to an end, and there's going to be a really, really bad storm with a lot of thunder and lightning and hail and snow, and all of the technology is going to collapse. And I had the exact dates and times, and speaking about electricity that's in the walls, and the radiation is going to not good things. Apocalypse, I guess one could call it. I started calling people. I went to my brother's house. Kind of wanted him to explain some things. I went to my mom's house, and anyways, from here to there, I was hospitalized. This was actually the second time I was hospitalized. First time was about depression when I was 16, and here I'm 21, and Rasta Gabi, yo, peace and love, speaking to God directly, looking him in the eyes, and I was actually put in a hospital for about 3 months. And actually, during this time in the hospital, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and this was a manic episode. This is what I was told. So this is what I choose to believe nowadays. But Miss Gabriella, or Light, who had just arrived at the hospital, was still looking into the sun with her eyes. I hope my English is okay. This is very ironic to me when I think of this now. This was my way to talk to God. I knew that God sees me from every place, just like the sun always sees me, even if I don't see the sun. And I know usually people can't really look into the sun, it blinds them. But to me, this isn't the sun, this was the eye of God. So I wasn't even feeling that I'm blinded by any light. This is just a form of communication, just like very good friends can look each other in the eyes. When I was depressed, I was afraid of the sun. I would walk with long shirts, and I would not go to the beach because there's a ton of sun at the beach. I would prevent myself from different activities that the sun would be there. It sounds ridiculous to me now, but I would go ride my bicycle with gloves and have a hat like all the time, even at sunset. So that was depression, and then in this manic episode, I'm like looking straight forward into the sun. And I thought it was all a game, actually, and I thought this is some kind of test or a lesson from God, and okay, I was wrong about apocalypse time, but yeah, it was this kind of internal fight, who to believe, God and this internal light and this whole form of communication that is beyond words, honestly and truly. Or to believe these people that have put me in something that felt like a prison, in the name of, protecting me and protecting society from me. There are so many questions that can be asked. I feel like for me it's a question of what is the price I pay, who do I choose to belong to. There can be limits to freedom, and we can still enjoy freedom. I can dance naked in my own apartment, but I cannot do that in the street. I can scream when I go down to the desert on a retreat, but I cannot yell in the middle of a shopping mall. So this has kind of been my search ever since, actually, the hospitalization. So I do, though, want us to... there still are a few more things that I want us to talk about before I reach all these questions and conclusions. Okay. Sorry, there is one more. There is a very beautiful sentence also of Breslev. He says, when a person is seeking to find a good that is big and loud, he cannot observe the gentle and quiet good. Now, I don't know if I said this enough, but my manic episode wasn't just, happy. I lost many things. I got lost a lot myself. I was in situations that did indeed endanger me, and I do feel very lucky and blessed to have survived not just depression, but also my manic episode. And yes, there is something very loud, and I would say it's just kind of a big mess of associations, and a certainty that is almost invincible. I was so positive that the world is going to come to an end on the 28th of December 2016. Nobody could talk me out of it. I couldn't listen, and I was stuck to my plan. So truly in certainty. It wasn't even faith or believing, it was certainty. So I assume that you can already kind of hear in the background that the healing from such a thing, or how do I, leave the hospital or live amongst people the way I do now. What a long process that is, and hard and difficult and deep. And so with this, I'm going to continue to something I want to read you. This is something that Rabbi Adin Even Israel Steinsaltz wrote. And he's referring a lot to Isaac ben Shlomo Luria, He'ari. He talks about the Kabbalah. And basically in the Kabbalah, there was the creation of this world, which is called Olam HaTikun, the world of fixing or correction. But basically before this world, or in my words, before the Big Bang, there was this kind of world that existed but also didn't exist. Everything existed at the same time and at the same time didn't exist. It's this paradoxical kind of world. And basically what they call it over there, they say, in Hebrew they say, Orot merubim bekelim muatim. Meaning we have a lot of light, but we have very little vessels, very little containers for this light. This cannot all exist together at the same time and same place. And basically there's some kind of explosion or tohu vavohu, some kind of a big mess, I would call it. And basically what happens from this mess, it's called Shvirat HaKelim. This is actually the breaking of the vessels, many sparks, I imagine this at least, many sparks of light and sparks of vessels. Each person can imagine it as you wish. It all kind of scatters around, and then at some point it becomes, I imagine it at least this way, it kind of sinks. And basically the new world is created on the remains, on these shattered pieces of light and vessels. I kind of imagine it like the desert, just like if you go to the desert and you can kind of see the layers going. It's all actually former rock that has former bones of fish that have created these layers, and that's kind of what is building this new world, in any case, Kabbalah-wise. Now it's very interesting also, this guy, Rabbi Adin, he says that during this time of the shattering and this chaos, there are many forces that are working in the world, cosmos, the nothingness, I don't know even how to call it, and they become this kind of violent, very powerful and blind power. So they don't have any direction, and they're all kind of moving randomly, and some of them may be even bad. But out of all of these pieces, the world is created. Now, what's interesting is that maybe there was a lot of light in the past. One can even imagine this as a palace, and now there was all of this shattering. So the next world, this Olam Tikkun in which we live in, is perhaps a more humble or modest existence than this bling bling ton of light going everywhere. But it is much more steady. I kind of imagine it like a palace that becomes, just a plain old cabin, but the palace couldn't hold because maybe it was made of, I don't know, ice or something, and it was melting. But the cabin is steady, and it's perhaps less bling bling. But it's consistent, and it can actually set the foundations to the future palace that will be able to hold, one of these days, hopefully. Amen. So one can take this, again, elaborate a lot about Kabbalah and Judaism, and it's a whole world. I do want to take it actually to my story of this light, this chaotic light. I didn't maybe read enough yet out of my notebook, but there is pure geniosity, I would call it, of light, or the girl called light, right? Of myself, of back then, things that I cannot understand. How did I put these things together? How did I create these poems? I used to be able to just speak poetry, rhyming with metaphors, and I still can, but I do feel it's at a different level. And I do miss it, even, I would say. I miss eating the honey and not just tasting it. I think that there's a price that people like me pay as being in part of society. And I feel like I am, every day, I need to be very much in tune, very, very flexible, a bit like a chameleon, changing my colors wherever I go. Because I want to fit in and I want to belong. I don't just want to be, bling bling and light and rating my own philosophies in my own apartment and not seeing the world and also at some point also losing myself along the way. I want to be part of a world of tikkun, of correction and fixing, not just a world of chaos and this false certainty. It's actually uncertainty. But when I was there and I thought that the world was going to end, it was there was certain certainty over there, and in that sense, I think my session title, it's Blinded by the Light. Light is a tool, right? Through if the sun is shining, I can see the colors in the world. If I'm too much in the sun, I'm going to get sunburned. If I'm seriously going to look in the sun for too long, something's probably going to happen to my vision. And I do believe that this festival is called Light of Infinite, and we should aspire to come near this light and to feel loved by this light and feel inspired by this light and pray even to this light. And at the same time, it kind of needs to be in the right dose. so that we don't end up like a Winnie the Pooh, trapped in this, stuck in this in between, not up above with God and not down below with the rest of mankind. I think that what's interesting about this story of the breaking and then this olam tikkun, this fixing, is that it's actually essential in a way. The world we know nowadays, it wouldn't have existed if stars wouldn't explode into each other. And me, the way I am now today, would not have existed if there wasn't all of what I've been through. So it does help me to be thankful, and it still hurts. Honestly, it's not that it makes it any easier, knowing that it was all worth it. Okay, great, it was all worth it, but I do miss light sometimes, and I'm looking for more and more places that she can exist, if it's through music and if it's through art, and I am. Yes, trying to remind myself, speaking of music, that, there are harmonies and things go well in life, and then there's a dissonance comes, right? We stumble upon something that doesn't sound just right, but then if we know kind of how to, smoothly go right back in to the harmony, that's what what art is about. That's what creation is about, and growth is about, and learning and living, I guess. I do want to say another interesting insight about the word or, light. So in Hebrew, the word skin is or in one spelling with an ayin, and the word or, light, is with another spelling, but it actually sounds almost the same. And this was something that also was I was writing about this a lot throughout my manic episode, my light episode. That there is like the light that's outside of the skin, right? The or mechutz la'or, and there is the light within the skin, and that it's actually we're mainly light, and I'm just kind of trying to see if there's anything that I missed that I wanted to say. So yes, I'm glad for everything that happened, and I'm also sometimes mad, and I think that's also okay and natural and even healthy. I think that sometimes our emotions are kind of like the glue in between experiences. And speaking of vessels, I think that that's kind of what helps us create our own internal vessel, is once we allow our own feelings to kind of exist. So can they allow us to bear the light and to bear the darkness as well? So I was just even thinking, just like flowers need a vase and a flame will need a candle and water needs a cup, right? Also the light is asking for a vessel. So I wrote here, I am searching for ways for light to be part of my life, not my whole life. Because I am light, but I also am not light. And I am also a shadow I cannot kick. I am a lover of a sun who wears sunglasses every day. I love sunrises and sunsets, maybe because that's pretty much the only time of day you can give the sun a glance, right? Look out in the eyes. I want light to be part of my life, because I'm a piano teacher, and I'm a hydrotherapist, and I'm a daughter, and a granddaughter, and an aunt, and I'm a human being. And I'm not just light, all of above. I am also skin and human and all. I had this eureka moment, kind of like the apple falling on the head. Right, we want to create our own vessel within us, and we want to contain this light by not being blinded by it. Right, all that So I was thinking, how do we do this? It's kind of an open question, right? For you to take with you. How do I create a vessel for the good, a vessel for the bad, a vessel for the light? And what came up is maybe let's start by not having too much honey. Or in other words, maybe we can find an apple just the right size to dip with just the right amount of honey. And this is my wish for you for Rosh Hashanah, is taking all these questions of light and honey, and good and truth and God and your own life, and just observing it, asking yourself about your own vessels and containers, and finding the right apple to receive just the right amount of honey. Thank you so much once again for listening. I'm sure I forgot millions of things, but I feel like I have said much, and I feel like there's always more, and it is good to know when to stop. Just like it's good to know how much light enters our hearts at each day. I think I'm very, very excited. I don't even know how to turn this off. I'm sorry. Thank you. And if you have any questions, thoughts, I am very, 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 very slow, but I do have a Gmail. So my name is Gabrielle Bodner at gmail.com. So feel free to email me. Take into account it could take a few weeks even. But yeah, I'd be glad to hear what you think. Bye for now.